Oh, somebody brought sound effects. Hey, everybody, we're live. Welcome everybody. Crossing the Stream.
I like that.
The August 25th edition. Great to have you all here. We're going to talk about some really great shows today. It's so exciting. This is going to be one of the best episodes ever. We do have a special guest. You may recognize him, Tony Berardo. The lighting and the
looking dapper, looking professional.
The damn beautiful hair. He's got nice hair. All right, we're going to do the theme song. We're going to do a theme song, kick it off. Tony, we're going to give you the first one, and then Roz is going to do the second slide. So take it away, buddy.
Here's the story of some lonely fellows who spend way too much time watching TV. All of them have jobs and friends. Well, not really. Just between you and me.
Rosner.
They made a live show out of their hobby. Every TV watcher's TV watching dream. Jeff, Ron, Sal, and Bob, and there's Howard. They call it Crossing Streams.
And then one day they went live on all the platforms. You can hear the people laugh and shout and scream. Still can't find another word that rhymes with platform. But man, we crossed those streams all together now.
We crossed the streams. We crossed the streams.
That's the way we do it. Here we cross the streams.
Right. Well, welcome everybody to Crossing the Streams. If you're tuning in for the first time, you can find us on YouTube. Just search The Jeff Dwoskin Show, and you can watch us live, or on Facebook, facebook.com/Jeff is funny. We're live every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. We all have got podcasts also that you can check out. I am live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show. Bob is Bob and Sal Show. Or is it Sal and Bob? Where's the legal?
No, it's Sal and Bob.
Sal and Bob Show. Tony, what's the name of your podcast?
The Berardo Podcast.
It's very fancy the way you say that. Speaking of our guest, Tony Berardo.
Easy for you to say.
Easy for you to say. Say hello. This is, by the way, last week Jess Paul hit a record. She was our first guest to have 3 appearances on the show, but today Tony ties
up. This is Tony's. I am honored and humbled. Hopefully I can make it on the 4th before that other person. They mean nothing to me.
We got a whole Alec Baldwin, Steve Martin thing going on now. So
5-timers club.
3-timers.
Yeah.
Like give me a jacket after 5, right?
Exactly.
No, you can find me on all social at the Berardo, and I got a YouTube channel where I do reaction videos that are very entertaining. And we talk about geeky stuff, and I also have a podcast where we talk about health and wellness. The Berardo Podcast, available everywhere. Just search the Berardo, and it'll pop up for you.
Yeah, watch his reaction videos. Like, watch this one. This one was like, that was Ghostbusters that he did recently. I watched it. It was very good. So anyway, you guys, Crossing the Streams, we're here. We're going to talk about tons of great shows and that you should be streaming on all the streaming platforms. If you missed last week's episode 37, these are all available on the YouTube channel. Just search The Jeff Dwoskin Show, all the Crossing the Streams. We talked about Schmigadoon, Mr. Corman, Logmeyer, and Beckett. We went into all those. I think we're all very happy with all of those. This week, we got a great lineup for you. We got Heist, which is not Money Heist. We got The Real Rocky. We got Freaky, and the documentary that's sweeping the nation, Untold, Malice at the Palace. And what's special about that is our very own Howard Rosner was there that night with the security team, and we're going to go deep. We're going to go real deep into that.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. I didn't know that.
I didn't know we were continuing the Bob Phillips pugilism series.
I asked permission from the host.
Yeah,
because I can go down this rabbit hole for the next 10 episodes. If I'm allowed.
That's a good one.
Anyway, Lee's here.
Hi, Lee. How are you?
Lee says hi to Baron Von Lippy Pants. Ron Lippett is trolling his own show. Thank you. And Jerry's in town. Hey, Jerry. Wait, what is he gonna say? Are you gonna have this funny Jeff guy on sometime?
Okay,
What?
there you go.
Nice.
That might be. Anyway, Fred Carroll's here from Head
Hey,
of
Fred.
Fred, did you do
A
that?
frequent
Head.
visitor. Fred, I should look up how many times he's been on. He might have been on close to 3 times.
Two, I think. I think he's been on
Two.
twice.
Two. Okay.
That's
yeah.
close to 3.
Only
That's
Smart
close to
mother
three,
effer, that
so
guy.
It's
Head
like
of
2/3 of the
Fred
way there.
and Ending the Stigma are Fred's podcast, so check those out.
Prolific.
So we're going to talk about all these great shows, but we do have a few things that are just flying. Sometimes at the beginning of the show, we talk about things that are just kind of flying around in pop culture. So right now, one thing very sad, Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones, a legendary drummer, passed away. I'll go first. I'll just say this about Charlie Watts, who's great, and I love the Rolling Stones and all that kind of stuff. But this was my mindset in 1990, 31 years ago. The Steel Wheels tour was coming to Michigan. They came to Michigan. I think it was the Silverdome, perhaps. And I went seeing them thinking, wow, this is going to be my last chance possibly to see them.
Yeah.
That was 31 years ago. I looked up the date of that tour.
Yeah. So he was. So what was he? Was
80.
49.
He was 80.
But he was 49 then.
At the time, yeah. And that's weird to think about, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's
but
it is weird because that means at my age, it's just what you thought of, what I must have thought of being 50 at that time.
Yeah. But also the Stones lived dog years pretty much, right? I mean,
well, Keith Richards.
Keith Richards, totally. I mean, Keith Richards is, he's like Yoda at this point in time. It just, that's a different lifestyle. I saw a picture. I've been my entire life a huge Rush fan, and Neil Peart especially, and great picture yesterday of that the Rush fan page posted of Neil, who passed away just a couple years ago, and Charlie Watts, who met backstage somewhere and brought a tear to my eye. It was pretty amazing picture.
Too amazing.
I always about Charlie Watts. I was always impressed by the fact that when you think about the biggest bands in history, Stones, Led Zeppelin, Beatles. When you just think of the biggest ones out there, Charlie Watts, amongst the drummers of those bands, was the one most content to sit in the back of the limelight. Like he never was the guy that wanted to be up front. He never wanted to upstage the big personalities of the band. And he was a fantastic drummer. And
he's just a pure metronome. I mean, that's just what he is.
That's right. So I was always impressed by just his demeanor in that way, about just empowering the rest of the band. Like he did.
I read today that his attitude basically was nobody impressed him. I mean, nothing affected him. Like he wasn't even impressed by the other Rolling Stones. he did his job, and that was that. So
I have a good friend of mine who literally travels the world, and his goal in life, stated goal, and what he does is goes to hard rock cafes all around the world. He's been to 150 something of them now. I think I mentioned him on this show before. Huge Charlie Watts fan for all the reasons everybody's talking about, his gentlemanly ways and sort of humble attitude. And he met him several times, with backstage passes and all this. And he said he was always the same, just quiet, level. Hi, how are you? Very cordial. And I didn't know this until he told me this today. Maybe you can verify this, but apparently it was Watts' habit at the beginning of a concert. He had there was a sign on front of his kit, like you'd have in a store, and it said open. And at the end of the show, he switched it to closed.
Oh, that's fun.
I didn't know that.
That's interesting.
I don't know. But we lost another great. So we just want to share.
Yeah,
that.
It's sad.
I've never seen the Stones, and it's.
Oh, you never seen them in concert?
I've never seen them in concert.
I missed them also.
It's a list that's unfortunately growing of musicians who I love that I never got a chance. I never saw the Stones. I never saw Bowie in concert. I never saw Tom Petty in concert. Just
What? You never saw Tom Petty?
I never.
I was
I
meant
never.
to
You know
see.
what?
I almost saw
Yeah, I
Tom
know.
Petty twice. I did
I
see
never did.
Bowie at the
I
State
think I've seen
Theater.
Tom Petty 15 times. I'm not even kidding.
All right.
I never did.
I don't do this joke anymore, but I used to do it. It was in my act several years ago about I'm at the age now where I don't go see my favorite bands. I go see their surviving members. like the Who, it should be called the Two. Are you getting this, people? Come on.
With you.
All
Strong.
right. Well, it's funny as
The
Bob
Bee
is.
Gees, there's one left. It's just B. Okay, sorry.
As funny as Bob is. So Spider-Man No Way Home, the trailer dropped.
Yeah.
Tony did a reaction video and everything. But the interesting thing about the trailer dropping and the timing was that the trailer actually leaked a couple days prior to it. And I did see the video of the trailer. It was really well. It was like somebody holding up their phone and somebody videotaping.
It was
the
like
phone.
trying to watch porn on TV in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think I see a boob.
Exactly. But it was. I gotta say though, it was that trailer. I mean, that was a trailer that leaked. So
We forgot an R in Spider-Man. Just
oh yeah, look at
so you know.
The well, this was
That's how the kids are spelling it, by the way, Ross. Just
Spider-Man.
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 He does whatever a spider can. Anyway, so this is the big reveal, the beginning of the multiverse, or at least the cracking of it. Lots of fan theories. One I read was that wasn't really Doctor Strange. And then they're kind of saying like somebody figure that's the Lizard in this completely black screen. And clearly that was William Dafoe's Goblin
laugh.
Bomb and
His laugh, you can hear his laugh.
Right. And
yeah,
then,
I mean, Alfred Molina, there's a lightning bolt at one point in time, which pretty much, everybody's saying, okay, well, Jamie Foxx's Electro will be in there. And it's pretty much a horribly kept secret. The isolation on what people think is going to be, what's his name that played Daredevil in the Netflix series.
They're going to bring him, make him canon, but not the show, but him.
Right.
Yeah. I hope all of those things are true because it's, and then the Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire is out there. I hope all those things are true.
The interesting thing I read was that when Doc Ock says, "Hello, Peter," right, is that the fan theory is that is the recognition that Tobey Maguire is in the movie because he wouldn't have recognized Tom Holland.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. I thought it was amazing. They must have used like 11 computers to get that de-aging software on Alfred Molina. He looks, it's like, I don't know if that's, it's obviously not natural.
What did you see The Irishman with Scorsese?
Yes.
I mean, come on, that was incredible, man. So
it really was.
They just copied my man Scorsese, but yeah, that whole attitude, man, is all that's going to be good from that. There's nothing bad, I don't think, from this trailer. Like all these theories could be true, but yeah, I think if you're going to bring back Doc Ock and you're not going to bring back the original Spider-Man, from that universe, like that's kind of hinting already that just because why would he just show up in whatever universe Tom Holland is in? Like he's got to be accompanied or at least get a cameo. There's got to be a Toby somewhere. So it'll be interesting, but I'm curious how they're going to do it. Like, is it going to be the three of them fighting at the end? Like that's what I'm envisioning, where that bridge scene that you see is going to be like 2 minutes. It's not going to be anything exciting where we're like, oh my God, it's Toby and Andrew and Tom Holland and they're for an hour together. I think it's gonna be like one massive fight scene at the end, and it might be cool, but I think we're building it up so much and all these theories. I think at the end we're gonna be like, oh wait, like that was it. Like,
right.
Well,
it will never be,
and we know, it never will. But then the other part of it is the assumption that is out there also is, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro. That there's got to be three other bad guys to be the Sinister Six, right? So will Michael Keaton be in it? So it'll be interesting to see if they do all those things. It'd be great. It'd be great if they did. The other two previews the other two MCU previews that are out right now, the most updated trailer for the Eternals, everybody believes hints at officially launching mutants in the MCU now. Referring the Celestial, creating that. And then the early reviews on Shang-Chi are that the fight scenes are some of the best fight scenes ever put on film.
On which movie are you talking about, Howard? The early views on what?
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Ring. Yeah. Who was a pretty decent, he was a mid-tier hero in the comics, but he was a hero. And then, the Eternals will be, I think, a bigger part of the MCU than most people realize. And it's pretty clear that they're going to launch Black Knight, who was an Avenger as well, from the Eternals. So it's a big rest of the year for MCU.
The one thing, and I know we're not gonna talk about it, Jeff, but the cool thing about this is it launches like the multiverse to where there is so many things that can happen. Like, no spoilers with What If, but get into What If you guys aren't watching it, because it just like opens up your brain to where it's like, fuck, like what if like this actually could happen, like live action. And I think there's going to be some, I mean, Jeff, you've seen it too. Like, do you think there's going to be some correlation like with Spider-Man in the multiverse and Doctor Strange? Like, do you see that? Even though it's not really fully animated and it's not live action, but it's kind of like this weird realm where, could there be something to tie in there? Because that's kind of my thing. Is I'm thinking Doctor Strange is a variant in this universe, in the Spider-Man live action universe, and I think he's like stuck in the What If world. Like, that's kind of my thing. Is
I think the what if is technically, they said, is canon. So at some point they could come and make a Peggy Carter is Captain Carter type thing. Yeah. I think the third episode of What If was great, and I thought the first one was half good, and we can talk about that if you want. And I thought the second one I didn't like at all. No disrespect to Chadwick Boseman. I don't think they like follow the rules of the What If. It was more like it didn't
type of thing.
Well, like in the second episode, okay, it's like what you have to believe is they come to get Peter Quill, and instead of going to Peter Quill, they get confused and end up in Africa, Wakanda, instead of the United States, and pick up a completely different kid, and then take T'Challa to space.
That's true.
It just doesn't even make sense. It's not What If. That's something different happening.
It's a different movie.
You know what I mean? That's not even that. That's not What If. The first one was What If. What if Peggy Carter had made a different choice in that scene, and then when they did that. I didn't like the first one because I thought there was no reason for them to give Steve Rogers any more screen time from when he got shot, and then she became Captain Carter. The whole idea that he and Howard Stark then invents Iron Man from that scene, it just made absolutely no sense.
That was a little tight-nipped. And also, too, let's talk about how is Captain Carter like ridiculously stronger than what Captain America was. Like, that bitch was like throwing tanks and doing. I never seen Chris Evans does that. I mean, it's. Listen,
well, it was a cartoon version. I'm sure if it was a cartoon version, he would have been.
I mean, I don't know. I'm all about equality, but this is getting out of hand. Okay, just kidding.
Can I make one observation about the whole Spidey thing before we go on?
Please.
I have to say this. Okay, I'm not a huge MCU fan. The whole thing. I mean, I watch some. I don't watch others, but I did watch. I understand who Doctor Strange is. And he's played with an earnestness and a seriousness by Benedict Cumberbatch, right? Okay. His character, what he supposedly does in this new movie is completely out of character for him, to just whip up a spell to make everybody forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, right? That makes no sense. The whole premise of this movie looks kind of... it's so out of character for that guy. Doesn't it seem that way?
Well, and that's the conjecture that everybody has. Maybe it's not Doctor Strange.
Yeah. But I mean, the very first Doctor Strange film, forget Avengers, but that's what people forget sometimes, because that was a pretty dope movie, but he was an egotistical narcissist prick, like in the first one. Like that's just who he is. And then like the Avengers, he kind of got soft and he got fun and he got like all Josh Whedoned up, and they had to make him lovable and shit. And then, you know, Endgame happened. So technically, like after Endgame, everything got reset essentially, right? So maybe this is like Doctor Strange, like we knew in the original Doctor Strange.
I think it's a misdirect. I think there's something going on.
And they're so good at that. Marvel's so good at
so.
misdirecting us and teasing us one way, and then you know, it's not like they disappoint, but they definitely make us do these theories. Like they're all sitting in a room being like, we knew it.
Yeah, I knew it.
All
right, we'll circle back to some recap shows at the end if we have time, and then but let's get into some of the shows. Let's talk about Heist. This is not Money Heist, but this asks, what would you risk for the score of a lifetime?
Ooh.
And the only person we know that can answer this question is
Baron, the Baron von Lippy Pants. Yeah, so at the risk of typecasting myself, Bob the Suit, this is now the third review of heist-driven movies, shows rather, all on Netflix, curiously. So I know I'm big on the whole Apple TV Plus thing, but Netflix seems to have cornered the heist industry. So you may recall, as Jeff pointed out, Money Heist is one of my favorite Netflix shows. Fantastic. A Spanish show. If you guys are into the subtitles thing, love that. But that's a fictional account. I also reviewed This Is a Robbery, which was about the art heist of the Boston, one of the biggest art museums in the world, which was in Boston, and how that all went down. This is the next version, Heist, which is a pure documentary with interwoven with a kind of dramatic reenactment. So it's the real story, but then overlaid with dramatic reenactment, which I will just say on a sidebar, curiously, it's the only dramatic reenactment show I've ever seen with nudity and violence. Usually with, dramatic reenactments, they're usually for all audiences, but this one, not so much. Anyway, this is the retelling of 3 different real heists that happened, and one of which, Howard, you'll love to know, is actually the Lufthansa heist, featured in Goodfellas.
It made me.
It made me, right? So, and they talk about that. Another heist was about an armored car robbery that happened in the 90s. That at the time was the single largest heist in American history. And then there was the third robbery of a Poppy Van something bourbon, which is the most expensive bourbon, one of the most sought after.
Pappy Van Winkle.
Pappy Van Winkle. Thank you very much. I should have written that down. Pappy Van Winkle. So someone robbed like hundreds of bottles of their most expensive vintage and took a number of casks and barrels of this stuff. And at the time, it was the single biggest non-monetary robbery in the United States. And here's what's interesting about this documentary. Each robbery is featured in two episodes. First episode is the lead up to the actual heist, so how they planned it and the going into details about how the actual heist went down. And then the second episode is how everything unravels and this thing invariably goes to shit and they all end up getting caught, right? So, and this is true for all 3 of these heists. And here's what I have scientifically discovered that I'm going to share with you guys now. And that is 3 completely different heists, different strategies, completely different things that they were trying to accomplish with it. But they all unravel for exactly the same reason. And would you guys like to know what that reason is?
Greed.
Carbone.
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange. Yes. No, it's the same reason. It's that they asked someone to be part of the heist who said, no, fuck no, I'm not doing that. And then the heist goes on anyway.
They ratted them out.
And then the person rats them out, right? That's a reward comes up or they are angry at the people, whatever it is. All 3 heists were sent down the tubes by a third-party person who wasn't involved with the heist. He said, when the police offered a reward, they said, you don't even have to go anywhere, dude. I can tell you exactly who did the heist and how they did it. It's that guy over there,
Wow.
and the whole thing goes down, right? And it's an amazing thing. So what I find hilarious about this show, and I highly recommend it, by the way, it's very entertaining. What I love about this is how methodical and well scripted and well designed these heists truly are. Like right down to the smallest of detail about how they're going to pull off this heist. But none of these people think through what they're going to do once they've accomplished the heist. Where's the money going to go? How are they dividing it? What are they going to do after the fact? How are they going to separate? And oh, by the way, what am I going to do about this person that we asked to be part of the heist that knows about the heist that we're not going to take care of one way or another, right? So
put them in a meat truck.
It's just a funny thing, and it's all true. It's all true, and it amazes me how super smart heists can go down the tubes for always the dumbest of reasons. So that is essentially my entire review of Heist. It is like I said, it's 6 episodes, 2 for each of the 3 heists. They are 45 minutes long. It's on Netflix.
Do they interview do they interview the people who were involved in committing the heist?
Yeah, the people that are involved.
That's great. That's cool. You get some good insight.
That's pretty cool. So the lesson though is don't ask anyone that you're not sure.
And
now the lesson is if you're gonna not have them in, or if they bail last second, you kill them. That's it.
You kill them, or you do something completely different. The other is,
when they found Ron, he was so frozen solid. It took the police 2 days to thaw him out.
Yeah, just do it. Just listen. If you're planning a heist, I'm not suggesting you do, but if you are planning a heist, just do it yourself. Don't tell anybody. Make it happen on your own.
I can never hear the word heist without thinking of the Dane Cook routine.
Dane Cook,
about heist. You always need that one guy who wasn't.
He's cool, man. He's cool. I promise you, he's cool. But he's not cool, is he?
I just need one more second. They rerouted me into Friendster.
But check it out, you guys. I think you'll enjoy the show. It's a good ride. It's what's nice about it is you only have to watch the episodes that you want to watch. Right? It's not continuation of any kind. So it's just check it out at your leisure and enjoy it.
Good.
All right, everyone check that out. And also everyone check out the Vince Vaughn. Is this like a body swapping thing?
So, well, I mean, Jeff, do you want to do the
No, I'm just guessing from the poster. I'm just guessing. Freaky.
That's the entire review, is it's just a body swap thing. No, it's, I got to tell you, I mean, I wasn't, it is a body swapping flick, but I don't know if you guys have ever seen Change Up with Ryan Reynolds and what's his name? Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
So that's like a body switch movie, but it's hilarious. Sure. Like when you see that, you're not thinking, oh, another body swap movie. Like, do we really need this in our life? Because it's something completely different. And I kind of went into this thing like kind of annoyed, but I wanted to see it because I love Vince Vaughn. I think he's hilarious. And he actually does pretty good dramatic roles. Like in True Detective, I really enjoyed him in, even though that series kind of fell off. But I was like, I got to see this. This will be interesting. It might be kind of funny. It is not funny, but it's really good though. Like if you like Blumhouse flicks, if you're a big Blumhouse fan, this thing is super gory. It reminds me a lot of like Jason, because spoiler alert, Vince Vaughn's the killer, but he has like this weird, like, I don't know, African mask or something like that he goes around slaying people. And, if you haven't seen Vince Vaughn in real life, nor have I, but he's huge. He's like almost 7 feet tall. Like he's a massive freak show of a man. So for him running around with like these crazy weapons, because he just grabs all these weird weapons from the get-go and starts killing these annoying teenagers that are like smoking weed at their parents' house, talking about, oh, you remember last year when this was haunted and now it's not? Like it's that cheesy, stupid stuff, but then it gets kind of gory and Blumhouse style. So I enjoyed it because I love horror flicks, and I thought it was pretty entertaining. But then when they swap, Vince Vaughn goes from being this crazy killer to like a teen. So he's almost like his Wedding Crashers character on helium with Ritalin. Like it was kind of like a fun
But when it becomes a teen, does the teen become the murderer?
Yes. So and then she becomes a complete psychopath, but she can't kill people because she's not 7 feet tall anymore. So she's trying to kill people, but she's getting batted around like a teen. So she has to find these creative ways to start killing people. And it is kind of, it's interesting. It's different, but I highly recommend if you're into like gory flicks and kind of like dark comedies, because there is some comedy in there that's pretty cool, but it scared the hell out of my my wife, even though yeah, I mean YouTube videos scare her, but you know, I mean it's a pretty good flick. I definitely recommend it if you're into Vince Vaughn, because he is funny when he switches to the girl, because he's just like a girl for about, you know, the 80% end of the movie. So
yeah, there's some troubling scenes at the end, some uncomfortable ones.
You saw, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Spoiler alert, but yeah, the girl prior to them switching, she falls in love with this teen kid, and at the end, it's Vince Vaughn. So there's some interesting romantic dynamics.
I more than once watching this movie, I just thought Vince Vaughn needed a paycheck, man.
Oh yeah, dude.
You know, this is not a Vince Vaughn movie.
No, I'm surprised he did it, but I'm thinking it was like one of those contractual deals to where he did like one movie and then like, hey, by the way, we're gonna throw you a movie like in 2020, and you can't ask us what it is.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then
so is his career over? I mean, I just assume he jumped the shark years ago. I know he did Heartbreak Ridge. No, what was it called the war movie.
That no, not Heartbreak Ridge.
Not Heartbreak Ridge. But anyway, so I just assumed his career was completely over.
How long ago was Dodgeball?
Well, they're gonna have another Wedding Crashers, right? And by the way,
I don't know about that.
Sort of on topic here. I think did you see Delivery Man? He starred in that.
I did.
No.
Where he was the father of hundreds of kids because he kept donating sperm to this particular place.
Yeah,
he was excellent in that. I love that movie. It was very sweet.
It was good. Yeah, again, I think I don't know. He's usually pretty good with like picking stuff, but I enjoyed him in that. What was that block movie he did? The Cell Block or whatever. I like that movie. I thought that was underrated because I thought he was really good in that, and that's kind of what I was expecting. Where I was like, oh, maybe it's like a dark, you know, kind of crazy stuff. But then there was a little bit of comedy. Then it got kind of freaky. But then I'm looking at the title, and I'm like, well, I mean, all right, I guess you warned me right when I press play. I mean,
he's got enough though between Wedding Crashers, Old School, and
Swingers.
Dodgeball.
Yeah,
Swingers. He still makes Swingers, of course, Swingers.
Here's what I like to see, and this is the last thing I'll say. If he gets back with like Jon Favreau and does some cool shit again, like everything he does with it, like the breakup and, you know, them two together is just cool. Like I saw Internship with him and Owen Wilson. That was okay. Don't do another Wedding Crashers 2. That's a mistake. It's like another Dumb and Dumber. That's not a good idea. We saw
The Internship is a terrible movie, but it does have a couple of scenes that make me laugh when he's trying to explain exchangeogram. And they're like, that's Instagram. And he keeps saying on the line. And
no, this is
online. That scene. And then the scene where they're doing the video interview to try and get into the internship. And they're both squeezed into the same webcam. I mean, look,
he's like
Ron,
like physical comedy. Like Vince Vaughn's very physical.
Yeah.
And he can't do that anymore. Like Chevy Chase at one point got kind of like in Community. Like if you ever watched Community, like Chevy Chase was like, all right, dude, you're just a creepy old man. Like you just, you know, you were funny and you need to kind of tone it down a little bit. Vince Vaughn's at that point where I think his career needs to calm down.
Well, so he was with, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? And I thought, honestly, he was weird in that movie. He was funny though. But I kind of assumed that like that was sort of the end of his career there. He just wasn't as funny, not as physical.
Yeah.
And now he's back. He's kind of turning into something else, and it's not good.
I'll tell you one of my favorite things that that he did, and you can find it every once in a while. I see it rerun on. He did a series. I think it was called the Vince Vaughn Wild West Comedy Show or something like that. Where him, John Caponera, and a couple other comics.
Brett Ernst, who was one of the guests on Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskins show.
Nice.
Who can be seen in Cobra Kai now.
They toured around, and it was pretty good. That was a pretty good series of comedy shows that they did.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
But I mean, the one thing I would say about this flick is it's stupid, but it is entertaining. There is some parts of it where it's like, hey, cool, but don't go in expecting like it's going to be, a Vince Vaughn movie or it's going to be like a horror movie. It's kind of this weird thing you haven't seen before, but it was interesting. I mean, I wouldn't pay to watch it in theaters, but I'm glad it's free on HBO Max. So,
okay.
All right. Glad it's free on HBO Max. That's a new category. All right. Now, for those of you who can't get enough, can't get enough of boxing.
Look at that guy's face. Look at that guy's face.
Our man, Bob Phillips, is back with yet another boxing drama.
For me, there is no more dramatic. There's no more moving. There's no more interesting arena to explore. With people than when it comes to boxing, the ring, the life in and outside of it. And I hope I'm not boring viewers who are not boxing fans. So I'll keep it to the interesting points about this fellow named Chuck Wepner.
You're not boring anyone, Bob.
The Bayonne Bleeder.
Our new sponsor, My Pillow.
Well, so Chuck Wepner, 6'5.5", 225 pounds, a mountain of a man, very little talent for the game. But he had a heart that just never gave out. He's still alive. I believe Chuck is 79, maybe 80 now. And this documentary it's an ESPN documentary, and it's called The Real Rocky because Chuck Wepner is the man whose story upon which Rocky was built. Sylvester Stallone cut the Rocky character right from Chuck Wepner's life after Chuck fought Muhammad Ali in 1975. Muhammad was at the top of his game. He had just beat George Foreman, knocked him out in the 8th round. He's on top of the world. And as happens a lot in boxing, when you have a big fight like that and you've gone the limit, your next fight, you generally you take a round off. And he took a round off by fighting Chuck Wepner, who was like the number 8 contender in the world, but he might as well have been the 800th. He had no business being in the ring with Ali with his skill level. But like I said, the guy was all heart. So this movie follows Chuck from before and after the bout with Ali. And I'll tell you, this is not a spoiler. Chuck loses badly. And it's not
very,
a surprise.
very badly.
Very badly. His nickname was the Bayonne Bleeder. He was from Bayonne, New Jersey, and he bled a lot. And but in the 9th round, out of the blue, he knocked Muhammad Ali down. Something that didn't happen a lot in Muhammad's career. Joe Frazier knocked him down once. I think maybe Kenny Norton, yeah. But he hit him with a body punch right under the heart while Muhammad was going back. Muhammad claimed that he was stepping on his foot. They ruled it a knockdown. Muhammad went down, and he went down hard. Well, he wasn't real hurt. He got up, and while they had to go to their corners, Chuck Wepner went to his corner and told the manager, "Go start the car. We're both going to be millionaires. I'm going to finish this guy." Well. Wow. That's not what happened. So the end result of that was it just pissed Muhammad off, and he used him as a punching bag for the next 6 rounds. And Wepner then made it his goal just to finish the fight. And Rocky borrowed from his life, so he just wanted to go the distance. That's really all Wepner wanted. He got within 19 seconds of that. There was 19 seconds left in the 15th round, and the referee stopped it because he got knocked down almost out of the ring. but enormous heart, enormous courage, a very funny man. After that fight, fell on hard times. The documentary takes you through the years of drug abuse. It takes you through, failed comebacks, takes you through his marriages. A very colorful guy. To me, one of the most interesting guys that ever fought, because he made $100,000 for that fight. I think Muhammad made 1.5 million, something like that. But he went on to clean himself up and fight again and win a couple fights. It just had this sort of unbelievable heart with him. And he later sued Stallone, and Stallone tried to put him in Rocky II. He tried to put him in as an opponent, but Webner showed up on set and was too stoned to actually play the part, which was maybe a half-day shoot, and sent him home. He later sued Stallone, and I think back in 2006, there was some kind of settlement. It was undisclosed. I'm not sure that he had any grounds to sue. I mean, there was a lot of license taken, but he truly was the guy that Rocky was built around. And there's a lot more. By the way, there's a movie called Chuck that's a regular Hollywood kind of movie, and stars Liev Schreiber. Very good movie. And it goes through this whole thing again, but there's more to it. His life growing up, and that's a really good movie. But I recommend it to anybody who wants to see somebody who has utterly no business in the ring with the greatest fighter of all time, hanging in there until the last 19 seconds. To me, it's not like some people see it as failure. I see it as enormous guts, courage, like I don't think I've ever seen in a lot of other really good, famous fighters. So cool. I do recommend it.
Sounds like a good way to get your brain dislodged from your cranium is what it sounds like.
It's also crazy when you look at all the major fights of that era and think that how did they allow people to go 15 rounds? 12 is the
those
maximum
15.
Yeah. Just crazy.
Each one worse than the last.
Yeah, I mean the three fights of the Ali Frazier series. I mean, those guys ended each other's lives essentially in those
Pretty
fights.
much.
Yeah.
Bob,
really
did this guy have like Rocky's affectation? Like did he talk like Rocky and have that whole?
No, he had a Jersey accent instead of a Philly. There is a difference, and I can't really like you listen to him talk now. He talks like this,
Yeah,
and he's unapologetic
Jersey, yeah.
So
about anything. Just loved his life. He made some missteps. He knows he did. He cleaned himself up, and he's a liquor distributor or something now. I don't know.
So
he knocked Muhammad Ali down.
So interesting thing on that, Ron and Bob, is on my podcast, Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show.
Oh, you have a podcast?
I do.
Get a podcast.
Anyway, my podcast, I talked to Jack O'Halloran, right? He was on, right, but he was also a boxer, and I don't think he fought Muhammad Ali, but he did fight Joe Frazier, and he says that if you listen to my interview with him, there's a whole section on it where he was talking with Stallone on the set of a movie, and a lot of what he put into Rocky came from Jack O'Halloran's life. Not necessarily that one specific thing you talked about, but specifically the Philadelphia stuff. And crazy. There was a lot of the stories and stuff like that. So
one last little fun fact I'll throw out here before we conclude this latest boxing edition. Irony of ironies. In the Boxing Hall of Fame, you will find a plaque of Sylvester Stallone, but you will not find Chuck Webner.
What?
Wow.
The Boxing Hall of Fame.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's just a crime.
It is a crime.
Speaking of crimes, let's talk about the Untold Story, which is a Netflix series. This one specifically, Malice at the Palace. Howard's going to take point on this, but I did watch it as well. A bunch of us did.
So did Ron. Yeah.
So did Ron. And this is we're coming to you live, most of us, from the great state of Michigan and Detroit, and not too far from the palace of which the Malice took place. So Howard was actually
which no longer exists, by the way.
Right. And they destroyed at the end of the
the
tragedy of the
So for our millions of viewers around the world that aren't familiar, I was a vice president of marketing for the Pistons by the time I left. So when this happened in 2005, 2004 actually, sorry, the 04-05 season, I was there. I was in the building. I have my world championship ring that I'm wearing right now for everybody to see. Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you. It was so unbelievably surreal to be there. So let me, I'll talk about the movie a little bit first. So in the first couple of minutes, I was skeptical about this film going in because it's produced essentially by Jermaine O'Neal from the Pacers. I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be horseshit. And then in the first couple minutes of the movie, they start talking about it. They're like, if anybody knew the real story. And my wife was watching it with me, and she's like, you're going to be so pissed off by the end of this because it's all going to be skewed. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. It is skewed, certainly, to frame them. It's an interesting movie. There's some fantastic, never before seen the security cams and stuff like that in slow-mo and some things like that. It was also great for me because some old friends of mine that I worked with are interviewed in it. Seeing the footage, it's crazy. So a couple of things. I'll just talk about that night quick, and then I'll give you some analysis. So that night was unbelievably charged emotionally. I always tell people the biggest mistake in my eyes that was made about that night was the last game the Pistons and Pacers had played was the clinching game of the Eastern Conference Finals the year before. And in the last couple of minutes, and they show this in the film, Ron Artest basically puts a forearm shiver into Richard Hamilton's face, knocks him down on the ground, gets a technical foul that ended up really sealing the game in a clinching game in the final minutes. They hated each other, those two teams, and it was constantly physical in all the games of the playoffs. So that game was the first time, the Malice at the Palace game was the first time they played since the playoffs, and they had a really junior officiating crew, which was a humongous mistake. And then what's worse is when the pushing and shoving happens at the end of the game, the horrible officiating job was to let it go on, as opposed to immediately saying, Ron Artest, you're out. Ben Wallace, you're out. Get the frick off the court. Have security escort them off and diffuse the situation. So I'll just talk about that night. So it was a crazy night. It was super emotionally charged, like I said. Everybody was on edge. It was a little hostile, certainly. For those who have never been to the Palace of Auburn Hills, the lower level suites at the Palace opened up into the bowl, and then there was a sliding glass door, and then on the front of the suite or the back of the suite was a door that opened into the suite hallway. So my client was Quicken Loans, Rock Financial, as they were called at the time, the presenting sponsor of the team. And it was the end of the game. Indiana hit 2 3-pointers to pretty much put the game out of reach. I walked through their suite to go to the grill restaurant bar where I was going to, see some folks, maybe have a beer and, kind of brush off the loss. I went over there and then saw the scrum happening on TV, ran back into the suite, and by the time I got back into the suite, all hell had broken loose.
Jesus.
That suite was directly over the visiting player tunnel, where all the footage of them getting everything dumped on them and everything. Myself and the person who was managing their suite that night, we pushed everybody back into the suite, closed and locked the sliding glass door because frankly, we were terrified. It was out of control. So it was insane. It was just absolutely an unbelievably crazy thing to see. And then I spent hours there after the game until about 1 a.m. Just got to kind of be a fly on the wall of watching our security folks and our upper management kind of go through some of the security tapes to try and figure out what happened and see some of the people. The kid who got cold clocked by Ron Artest in the stands, who was next to the guy that actually threw the beer, they're like, did he throw it? And then one of the other guys is like, no, that kid had worked guest services at the Pistons previously. They're like, there's no way, whatever his name was, there's no way Jonathan did that. And he didn't. So it was an unbelievably weird event. The most interesting things that I learned from the documentary that I never really knew how much there was animosity between Jermaine O'Neal and Ron Artest. Because of Ron Artest's craziness, and that they traveled that entire season leading up to it with a psychiatrist for him on the road. But then, the voice of reason was Reggie Miller, who's just such a smart, thoughtful guy. That's why he's great as a color commentator now. And he made the other comment that I always said is the thing to me that always set everything off was why the officials let him lay down on the scorer's table, was taunting, the Pistons players and taunting the fans to do that. And it was just begging to happen, unfortunately. Just crazy. It was crazy. It's a good movie. Again, a little bit, in my eyes, a little bit biased. I don't think the Pacers took enough blame for what happened. They tried to paint it as being victims, with the exception of Artest. They all said Artest was a crazy person. But yeah, it's a good watch. It's a quick hour watch. But a nutty night.
So Howard, first off, I completely agree. I think a lot of people agree that Ron Artest laying on that scorer's table lit the fuse to what transpired that night. But I just say this, and I said this to you earlier today, but I stand by this. When you watch this documentary, they show from 3 different angles this impossible shot that this guy with the beer threw. If you watch this in the documentary, he throws this beer 30 feet up in the air.
Yeah,
like there's no. If he had 20 more tries to do this, he could never repeat what this guy did. He threw this beer up in the air and it lands right on Ron Artest. 15 rows down and off to the side.
Yeah,
I mean, just think about that. It's impossible. How do you? And the fact that this beer
should have been in the league, no?
Right?
Yeah.
The fact that this beer lands dead center mass on Ron Artest, who's laying on that scoring table, and he goes berserk and charges up in the stands is how this whole thing went down. But I clearly if Artest doesn't lay down, this doesn't happen. But I would go even further in saying if this guy doesn't make this impossible beer shot, this probably wouldn't have happened either.
Yeah, it was. And again, it never would have hit him if he wasn't laying on the scorer's table. That's never going to get to him. On the floor. Reggie Miller said
that guy had no right to throw that beer.
No,
of course not.
Yeah,
no.
They also talked about there was only 3 police officers working that night. Did you see that part of it?
Yeah.
There were only 3 people.
True.
Yeah,
it's 20,000 fans.
It was crazy.
The guy who got clocked by Artest. I mean, he had to have sued, right?
I don't know if he did. I mean, the guy who got clocked, who was on the floor, ended up getting charged. I think criminal trespass and
right. But the innocent guy who had his jaw busted or whatever, he had to have. That's $1 million case right there, right? I'd love to know what happened with that guy.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you.
The guy in the floor was such a d-bag, and and still, even in the interviews now, dude, you cross into their world with your fist.
Yeah.
I mean, these people are 8 feet tall, and they're just going to destroy you.
And it's always really amazing if you've never had the opportunity to sit in a floor seat, especially a front row floor seat for an NBA game. It's literally the only seat of its kind in sports. There's no barrier between you and the action. You are feet away from, and very often become part of the action. Somebody diving after a loose ball. It is an unbelievably unique way to see a sporting event. So how it hasn't happened more often is stunning, frankly. You see beer spills and stuff like that affect the game. And obviously there's tons of crap talking. I mean, it is, Tim Smith, who is an old friend, who was interviewed for it, one of our heads of security. He talked about it like, people show up to games and have a couple of drinks and they think there's no repercussions for being a douche and saying whatever you want to a player.
Yeah.
I always appreciated. So I saw, I think I tried to do the math, something like 400 plus NBA basketball games in my time with the Pistons. And I always appreciated fans that got on a player's case in a unique and funny way. And like one that stands out to me, I remember standing for the entire second half of the game with Tom Wilson, the former president of the Pistons, who I love. And we were laughing because there was a guy whose name was like Zarko Chabarkaba, who played for Golden State, I think. And every time he touched the ball, these guys kept calling him Chewbacca. And every time he would touch the ball, they'd go, ah! That was that's a great, smart heckle. And I'll never forget Tom and I just standing there laughing our asses up every time those guys did that. Like that's good heckling.
That is good. And here's a good all right. That amazing account, Howard. Thank you for sharing all that with us. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're at the end. We're at the end of the episode. Can you believe it? Bob, say goodnight.
Good night, everybody.
Rosner.
Good night, everyone.
Tony, say goodnight.
Good night. Thanks for having me on the Berardo podcast. Check it out.
Baron Von Lippy Pants, say goodnight.
Good night, everybody. See you next week.
All right, everyone. Thanks again. I'm Jeff Tawaskin. Check us all out, and we'll see you next week and every week. And that has been another episode of Crossing the Streams. Join us every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook and YouTube. Follow the Jeff Dwoskin Show on YouTube to be alerted every time we go live with your hosts, Jeff Dwoskin, Ron Lippett, Howard Rosner, Bob Phillips, Sal D'Amelio, Zach Wiseman. We're all in the socials. Follow us. Listen to our podcasts live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show, the Sal and Bob Show, and Some Nobodies. Check them all out, and we'll see you next week and every week when we cross more streams right here. See you then.